The New York Giants had an injury scare on Tuesday. We'll tell you who and get you updated on that and a whole lot more coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Trainer, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. And we thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And for those of you who are making us your first listen of the day, we thank you for that as well. All right, another busy day for the New York Giants, a super hot day, super long practice on Tuesday. The Giants at it. We're going to kick things off with, unfortunately, with some injury news, some good news, some bad news mixed in there. But I know a lot of people are going to want to know about, the injuries that were reported today, specifically to Malik Nabers. So we'll cover that first. In the first segment. And then in the second segment, we're going to turn our attention to Deonte Banks and the battle that he is in, and just some takeaways that I have on Deonte Banks. Just really inconsistent play by Deonte Banks, but I'm going to get into that a little bit more in segment 2. And then in segment 3, the anti-Deonte Banks. I'm going to talk about Evan Neal and what I've seen from Evan Neal in camp in the 2 days that the pads have gone on. So that is our topic list for today. And as always, again, thank you for tuning in to the Locked On Giants podcast. All right, let's get the injury stuff out of the way because, we're now about a week into training camp, and the injuries are starting to kind of creep up a little bit. The big one was the scare that Malik Nabers, wide receiver, gave everybody. Now, Malik Nabers, just to kind of give you a little background, the Giants did a lot of running plays today. A little bit of passing, but, not like the other day, not like Monday when it was basically all runs. So Malik Nabers was actually injured. He came down hard on his shoulder on a running play. So he came up, and he was kind of like holding his shoulder and, grimacing a little bit in pain. And we were like, uh-oh, because you don't want to see that with Malik Nabers. You don't want to see that with anybody. So he walked off the field with the medical staff team, a couple, Ronnie Barnes and some other members of the medical staff, went into the field house and presumably back to the locker room. Now, my understanding, and this is good news, but my understanding is that the injury is not expected to be anything big. I mean, worst case scenario, it's a stinger, but the Giants have off on Wednesday. Malik Nabers will probably dial him back, I would think, on Thursday, and then maybe for the rest of the week. The Giants are off, like I said, on Wednesday. They practice Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Then they're off again on Sunday. So you know what? Hold them out if you need to. Why take any chances with, aggravating whatever it is he suffered. But again, my understanding is that injury is not something that they're really worried about, pending, of course, further tests and evaluations, which were ongoing this evening as I recorded this show. But the good news is, like I said, they don't think it's anything like, where they've got to brace themselves for anything bad news. All right, a couple of other injuries we'll talk about real quick. Wan'Dale Robinson, receiver, still not able to practice. They're still, kind of working him back in. He's sore from what I understand, but the expectation is he could be back doing some stuff by Thursday. So he's going in the right direction. Cam Scatterboo, I don't know if he's dealing with something or if they just dialed him back because he had such a busy and productive practice on Monday. And basically, he's been busy and productive since the start of training camp, kind of making up for lost time in the spring. But Cam Scatterboo was held out of practice today. I don't know, again, if it's injury related. It didn't look to be. But then again, I saw Cam Scatterboo go into the field house while the practice was going on. and he was in there for quite a bit. So I don't know if he was in there stretching, being looked at, being worked on in any way, shape, or form. He did come back out to watch the rest of the practice. So whatever it is, I don't think it's anything serious. It could be, like I said, that they just dialed him back a little bit. And, head coach Brian Dable did talk about dialing it back for a few guys who were really going at it, very, intensely. So Scatterboo, I think, is fine. The one injury that I think might be something to keep an eye on as far as, this player is concerned, DJ Davidson went down with what looked like a non-contact injury. It was on an 11 on 11 play. And DJ Davidson, he was literally like right in front of me. So I was able to see this. He went down and he grabbed the back of his leg. So I don't know if it was a hamstring or, heaven forbid, an Achilles or, a knee, maybe an ACL. I don't know what it was. I do know when DJ Davidson, defensive lineman, got up, he had trouble putting weight on that foot. He had to be helped over to the side. The trainers were kind of stretching his legs out. So that led me to believe that maybe it was a hamstring. I hope that's what it was for his sake, because that, is probably the lesser of the evils. But DJ Davidson ultimately had to be carted off the field. So that's a real shame. I mean, he had an uphill battle to make the roster anyway. But DJ Davidson, if he suffered another injury that's going to keep him out for a chunk of time, this will be the third time, I think, in 4 years he's been in the NFL. So, you hate to see that, really. You really do. But, injuries, that's what the scheme's all about, unfortunately. You got to get guys who are injured. You just got to hope that they're not serious injuries and they can kind of, keep that all under control. So there's one more just real quick I'll talk about. Tyler Newman went down on the ground after taking kind of a hard hit on a play. He was down for a few minutes, but he got up, walked off with a trainer. Didn't seem woozy or anything like that, but something to keep an eye on, because again, we're getting to that point in training camp, even though it's only a week now and the Giants are off on Wednesday, we're getting to the point where guys are starting to get nicked up a little bit. And the objective is you want to try and keep guys as fresh as possible for what is a critical 2-game opening stretch against NFC East opponents. So if the Giants dial it back a little bit, I would not be surprised on when it comes to some of these guys. Now, they are not in pads on Thursday. I believe they're going to be in pads on Friday and Saturday. And then, of course, Sunday is a day off. And then next week, we kind of shift gears a little bit towards getting ready for games and stuff like that. So that's kind of where we're going. And again, I would not be surprised if they play it safe with some of these guys and just dial it back somewhat. All right, coming up next, Deonte bangs. That's right after this. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat and get your draft board ready and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and I love how smooth the draft day experience is and the volumes of information they provide to help team owners make the most informed decisions. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins on August 4th, so go on, stay tuned, and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, that's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And before we get into our next segment, I want to send a shout out and a word of appreciation to some of the listeners out there. I've met a few of you at training camp. A few of you have come up and you've called for me, and we've had an opportunity to shake hands, take selfies, and truly, I'm so blessed to be doing what I do. I really do appreciate this opportunity that I have and the opportunity, to come to you on a daily basis here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And when somebody, comes up to me and says, "Oh, I watch you," or "I listen to you every day," or "I read your stuff," I'm like, I always joke, I'm like, "Oh, was your last name Trainer?" Because, I always used to like to joke and say that only my family members read and listen to my stuff. But it's truly humbling, and I am, very fortunate and blessed to be doing this. And I appreciate each and every one of you, my everydayers, my Blue Crew community members, whether you're just finding me for the first time or you pop in whenever. I appreciate all of you. So thank you so much for making this special. I do this for you. And, I'm here. If there's something particular that you're interested in, you know how to get in touch with me. It's all in the show notes if you want to reach out. So, all right, let's get into our next segment. I'm going to talk about Deonte Banks. Now, Deonte Banks, we kind of know how last year he struggled. New defensive system, wasn't quite a fit for what he did well. But the most alarming thing about Deonte Banks, I thought, was his whole approach. It's like, okay, if something is challenging, you can do one of two things. You can kind of throw up your hands and just say, "That's it, I'm not going to bother," or "I'm going to do the minimum." Or you can really work at it. You can really, dig at it and say, "Okay, I'm not getting it now, but doggone it, I am determined to get it." I'm not so sure Deonte Banks did that last year. I think there were many times when he was just totally frustrated with what was being asked of him. He didn't understand what was being asked of him or couldn't execute it. And as a result, you saw lapses in his effort. You saw inconsistency in his play. And, you got to wondering, gee, did the Giants make a mistake with him? So fast forward to this summer. Deonte Banks is in a competition for cornerback two. It is a legitimate competition now. It's not just, the coaches using Cordell Flott to light a fire under Deonte Banks's backside. There is a true competition. So the Giants, in an effort to help Deonte Banks, as well as to help the rest of the team, these moves just weren't made specifically to help Deonte Banks. But they changed the defensive backfield coaches, right? They brought in Jeff Burris and Marquand Manuel, who Deonte Banks says he likes. He likes how they're communicating with him. Paulson Adebo, they brought him in as a free agent. Now, obviously, Paulson Adebo is going to be CB1, but he's also been a young mentor, and he's been really involved with helping Deonte Banks. Banks today spoke at the podium, talked about Adebo and how he's kind of, helped him with different things that he learned that have helped to make him so successful in his career. So really, that was missing, I think, last year for Deonte Banks. The Giants had veteran quarterbacks, but nobody really jumped out as a leader per se. And Paulson Adebo is doing that. He's kind of taken Deonte Banks as well as some of the other young cornerbacks under his wing and, was serving as that young veteran or that veteran voice in the room. So that's all good for the Giants because they were missing that. Okay. So the thing, though, with Deonte Banks is, again, consistency. And the mistakes that I saw in today's practice, they really shouldn't be made at this point. And I'll give you an example. There was a pass interference play. It was a clear pass interference play. All right. On the play, Brian Burns would have had a sack, but, because you can't sack the quarterback, the plays continue. So the ball was put up in the air. And it was intended for Bo Collins, an undrafted free agent receiver trying to make the team. Deonte Banks was in coverage, and he was doing a good job sticking to Collins's hip. But here's the problem. Banks, never turned around to look for the ball, hence the little yellow flag that came out. And he was just trying to mug the receiver. Now, you would think at this point, if you're a cornerback, you could maybe start to look for little cues as to when to turn around and look for the ball. All right. So, for example, I was watching the play because it was right in front of me. Collins started to slow down and turn his head to look for the ball. The second Banks saw that, that should have been his sign to turn around and look for the ball as well, because the ball was obviously on its way. But he never did that. And when you see plays like that, you say to yourself, dude, that's like quarterback 101. How could you not do that? So you saw that play and you shake your head and you say, come on, Deonte, man, we know you know better. But yet, these are the little inconsistencies that you see in his game. Now, to be fair, he did have a good coverage play earlier in the practice where he broke up, I forget who the receiver was, but he broke up a pass and he played it well. He got his head turned around and it was a clean play. So it's the little inconsistencies that drive you mad when it comes to Deonte Banks. Now, I personally think he could be a very good cornerback. He's got the skill set, he's got the quickness, the speed, he's got everything going for him. But he's got to want it. There are guys that, they come from college to the NFL, and I hate to say it, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the case with Banks, but sometimes they get to this level and they think, okay, I'm here, I got it made. No, you don't have it made. You got to want it. All right. This is a whole new opportunity. You've got an opportunity to have it made. But if you don't take advantage of it, you're not going to have it made. So I just think with Deonte Banks, I don't know if it's still frustration. He said that he's more comfortable this year in this defense. It's year 2 in this defense, which is different from, what he played for Wink Martindale when he was here. But you want to see the consistency from him. You don't want to see the same stupid mistakes being made. And I got to be honest with you, I think I saw that twice with him on 2 different plays where he just didn't turn around to look for the ball and he got the yellow flag. So that's what's so maddening about Deonte Banks. The talent is there, but he's got to want it. He's got to want it. Now, he talks about, I'm working every day. I'm working to get better. I think I'm getting better. Okay, great, but is that lip service to the media or what? What's going on? Now, I do think between the coaching changes and the arrival of Adebo, that will help him. But the bottom line is you can give all the resources you want to a particular player. You can surround him with all the talent in the world. But if he doesn't want it, if he doesn't take steps to be consistent, to work at it, it's all for naught. So we'll keep an eye on Deonte Banks, but yeah, that was kind of like a shake your head moment when you saw him commit those pass interference plays. It's like, you should know better, man, But again, we'll keep an eye on it. We're a week into training camp. This is year 3 for Deonte Banks. It's a big year for him because after this year, they've got to decide if they're going to pick up his 5th-year option. And with the way he's been going, I don't think they do. He could still turn it around. But right now, if I had to say, what are they going to do? I'd say, nope, they're not going to do it. All right, now, coming up next, we're going to talk about a guy who does want it and who has looked pretty good so far in camp thanks to his embracing the challenges that are before him, and that is offensive lineman Evan Neal. So that is coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest. You know that some days, no matter what you're doing, you need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the beverage cart. And right now, through September 30th, when you use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF at 5hourenergy.com today, again, that's the number 5, then the word hourenergy.com, you'll receive 20% off on one order. Again, this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions or on subscription orders. So again, check that out. 5-Hour Energy, the number 5hourenergy.com. And the promo code is Locked On Golf for 20% off one order. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and the Giants are off tomorrow. And I know I've said that as long as there's a practice, there's a show, but you know what? I'm going to do a show for you anyhow. We're in the groove here. We're 5 days a week. Sometimes we're doing 6 days, 7 days, trying to keep you up to date on all things Giants. And there's plenty to talk about for sure. So you will get a show from me tomorrow. All right. I'm not sure exactly what time it'll drop. I might have a guest for you. I might not. We'll have to see how it goes, but there will be a show tomorrow. So, all right. In this segment, we're going to talk about somebody who basically has had a complete attitude change. And this has been for the better. Neal. Now, just to go back, what was it, a year or so ago? Neal was insistent. I'm an offensive tackle. I was born to play tackle. I want to play tackle, and that was the end of it. Well, now he's embraced a conversion to guard, and he's really worked at it. Everybody I've spoken to about him on and off the record have told me that he has just been a dynamo in the classroom. He has just totally embraced the opportunity, and he's done well with it. Right now, I've told you before that with offensive linemen, defensive linemen, you really can't tell a whole lot until the pads go on. So we've had the pads go on at the Giants camp now for the last 2 days, and I've been watching Neal almost exclusively. As a run blocker, that man can just block out the sun. He is a big-bodied man. When he hits you, you know it. I mean, he will knock guys on their fannies in the run blocking game. He can wall guys off. He can seal them. There have been a lot of successful runs over the last couple of days that have gone behind Neal. The key is obviously pass blocking. Now, a little different technique inside. We haven't seen a whole lot with pass blocking because the last 2 practices have been very run heavy. So that's something that still we need to see, because that to me is the biggest question mark for Neal is his footwork in pass pro, is it better than it was at tackle? So, Neal spoke today. He talked about how he went to the IMG Academy, challenged himself, fully embraced this conversion from tackle to guard. He's played guard before in college, but it's a little different here at this level. And he just spoke about, being confident and, how his skill set fits and what he's been doing. And it was very just reassuring because you could hear in his voice that he embraced the change. And, embracing it is half the battle. That is half the battle. And you know what? He's looked good in the run game, which, we kind of knew he would. The pass game, I think that's going to just fall into place for him. But of course, we'll keep an eye on that. Now, the question becomes, is he going to be good enough to be the 5th offensive lineman? And if so, is he going to play left guard or right guard? We'll find out. Obviously, the pass blocking is a key. But as far as what side he plays on, I think ultimately they want him at right guard. And the reason why he's been getting some snaps at left guard is because, remember, John Runyon Jr. was coming off an injury-filled year last year. He had the shoulder and the ankle. So they want Neal to play both sides. But I think ultimately the challenge is going to be at right guard. I think that's where they would like to have him. And if you think about it, assuming that Andrew Thomas is okay to play, which he should be, and Jermaine Illuminor stays healthy, you can't go wrong putting Neal next to either one of them, right? Both of them are veteran players. They're very good at what they do. And sometimes, when you play next to somebody who knows what they're doing and is really good at what they're doing, that can make a world of difference as far as the communication, especially when you have to do combo blocks and all that, all the fancy stuff that comes with pass protection and whatnot. So I'm feeling pretty good so far about what I've seen from Neal with now that the pads have gone on. The true test, like I said, is going to be how he does in pass protection, what he can, what he left behind as far as bad habits when he was out on in a phone booth. And of course, I want to see him go up against some of the better competition. To the asterisk here is that in camp, the Giants camp, Dexter Lawrence has not taken part in any of the team drills. Dexter Lawrence is the best player the Giants have on the defensive line, probably on the whole defense. So this isn't to knock what we've seen from the other guys, but to me, if they can get Dexter Lawrence on the field at some point, I want to see how Evan Neal does. If he has to go up against Dexter Lawrence, if he has to participate in a solo block or a combo block or whatever, that's going to tell us a lot because you're just not going to get any better than Dexter. So overall, with Dexter, with Evan Neal, I'm encouraged by what I've seen. I think he's on the right path. I like the fact that he has embraced the change. He has worked at it and continues to work at it. There's still some questions to be answered, but I'm feeling pretty good about the direction that's going in. And of course, we'll talk about it once we see the games. I'm sure he'll get a lot of work in the games, and we'll see how he does with that because that will be very telling. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Giants. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and spending part of your day with us. Now, before we say goodbye, please, for your next listen, consider checking out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rodgers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, I will see you tomorrow. Until then, have a great, great day.